Hello and welcome to the DVD Graveyard. Tonight we're going to be taking a look at Hatchet 3 from 2013, and this is the first and I think the only one in the Hatchet franchise that would actually not be directed by Adam Green. This time around, this movie would be directed by B.J. McDonnell, who the only thing I've actually seen that B.J. McDonnell directed when I looked it up was he did the Foo Fighters horror movie, the Studio 666, which was fine. I never knew that the same guy who made that movie. I just never put two and two together. I've only seen that movie a couple of times, but it was fine for what it was. I prefer this movie over that one. I can say that for sure. But another thing that I wanted to kind of mention off the top of this is I don't know if it's just me, if I'm crazy or what, or if somebody else kind of feels this way. And it's most likely due to the fact that this was a different director behind the scenes. But this one, to me, I kind of looked into the budget just a little bit on each film before going into this. And because I was sure that this one had the largest budget behind it. And from what I could see, it did not. It had, I think, pretty much either an equal budget to the first film or just a little bit smaller budget than the first movie, which is odd to me because this one, from the first time I watched it, in 2013, even now, whenever I sit down to watch this one, this one to me felt the most produced. I guess you could say it felt like it had the most financial backing behind it. But looking it up, I didn't really see that online anyway. So I don't know. I think again it's mainly due to just the shift in director had something to do with that, I'm sure. Now, speaking of Adam Green, he is a producer on this movie, of course. I may have already said that, but he did write this film. So, and before I don't want to really kind of spoil anything in this review so far, but this one, honestly, I really wish they would have just ended the trilogy here. Like, I really wish, from what I recall, I do enjoy Victor Crowley, the next film in the franchise, but honestly, this one wrapped up the series so well. I think that this was like kind of the perfect ending in this trilogy, that they really didn't need to do anything else. I thought it was a great way to kind of wrap everything up, close the book on Victor Crowley, Mary Beth, all of the characters that we've kind of met throughout these films, or what's left of the characters that we've met anyway. So it just, I don't know, why there needed to be more. I felt like there didn't need to be any. When I did see this, I was so happy because, again, it ended so well. Now, having said that, as much as I do love this movie, this one is probably, in my opinion, the weakest in the trilogy, in the first trilogy anyway. Just because I don't know, it almost rehashes kind of what was going on in the second movie. So, like in Hatchet 2, we have basically a posse of hunters and just badasses and jackasses as well go into the swamp to hunt down Victor Crowley, basically. And they kind of did the same thing in this movie, and of course they all get slaughtered, but they kind of did the same thing in this movie, except they're like, all right, now it's going to be a SWAT team going in after him instead of just kind of hunters and stuff like that, which, is not a huge kind of, not a big problem. It's just like, let's throw a little bit more at Victor. And to be honest with you, I don't really know what much differently they could have done. I don't really have any ideas, but again, it feels like just sort of a larger version of Hatchet 2, which, I mean, if you listen to my review, you'll know that I love Hatchet 2. And again, that's not a problem with me. I kind of like what's going on in this movie. But it's just something I thought I would mention that's really kind of going. It's going off of the kind of, again, that kind of same plot that we were getting in Hatchet 2. So before we get into the actual review, which I'm not going to go too deeply in on this one because, like I said, it's very similar to the last film. I'm going to read the plot synopsis off the back of this DVD that I have. I got this DVD in 2013. I'll kind of tell this story real quick because I'm sure everybody just wants to hear this. So long time ago in 2013, I had graduated high school when this came out, and I knew that it was coming out, and I was super pumped. And I remember I went into Walmart with my mom, and we were kind of walking around in there, and I had gotten some beer for that night, and we were kind of walking around in there, and I saw that it had been released, and it was in there, and I was like, oh shit. Hatchet 3's out. I've got to get this. So I bought it, and I remember I just went home that night, and I got super drunk and watched Hatchet 3. And I was so happy about how it wrapped up. I thought it was just a perfect ending to the series. I was very impressed with it and just fell in love with it. And I was like, good, we have closed the book on Victor Crowley. And I was super happy. And I've still got that same DVD here, the one that I got from Walmart in 2013. So that's just kind of a little backstory on how I got this one. I usually like to kind of tell that. So I saw this movie fresh off the line. So anyway, I'm going to read the plot synopsis real quick. In the epic third installment of Adam Green's modern slasher franchise, the vengeful Mary Beth teams up with a local policeman and his ex-wife to uncover the secret to killing the seemingly invincible maniac Victor Crowley once and for all. While the trio races to find a way to stop the monster's rampage, a heavily armed team of mercenaries takes to the bayou surrounding Crowley's home and goes head to severed head with the lunatic in an all-out bloodbath that raises both the bar and the body count of the previous two Hatchet films put together. Featuring a cast of beloved horror icons and jaw-dropping stunts and gore effects, Hatchet 3 is an action-packed and explosive conclusion to the blood-soaked saga of Louisiana's most fearsome killer. So, I'll kind of segue off of what that said there, that we, in true Hatchet fashion, we get some more horror alumni in this movie that we will kind of know and love. So, of course, Danielle Harris will come back to play Mary Beth. She is established as Mary Beth at this point. Of course, Kane Hodder comes back to play Victor Crowley once again. But in addition to that, we get Zach Galligan, who plays Sheriff Fowler of the Gremlins films. Of course, we get Derek Mears, who plays Hawes. He's one of the SWAT team lead guys, who, of course, famously played Jason in the 2009 Friday the 13th remake. Caroline Williams is in this movie, who is Stretch from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And then the late, great Sid Haig is in this movie, who plays Abbott McMullen, which we'll talk about him in just a little bit. And then, how could I forget that Perry Shin once again has returned in this movie, although he is not playing a sibling to one of the previous guys. He is just another guy who happens to look exactly like the Sean and Justin from the previous two movies, which there's a funny little line that kind of calls back to that at some point in this movie. So in true Hatchet fashion, this movie picks up exactly where Hatchet 2 left off, with Mary Beth blowing the shit out of Victor Crowley's face until there's nothing left. Of course, he gets right back up, with no problems, and kind of attempts to kill her once again. But of course, she fights him off. I think she puts her fist in his face, and then knocks him down, and he falls on the gigantic chainsaw from the previous film, and she ends up cutting him in half. And she takes a piece of him with her to the sheriff's station, and to kind of prove his existence. Now, of course, that's when we meet Zach Galligan, who plays Sheriff Fowler, and he immediately locks her in jail. And they send a search party out to the swamp because they think that she's covered in blood at this point, and they think that she's the one who has done all of this. So, in the midst of all this, this is when we meet Caroline Williams, who comes to interview Mary Beth. So basically, Caroline Williams' character is she's like a reporter who reports on Victor Crowley and kind of stuff like that, local legends, things like that. And she spends a lot of time in the jail with Mary Beth and kind of on the road with Mary Beth. So Mary Beth kind of takes a similar role to Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween 2 in this movie, in that she doesn't really have a lot to do kind of until the end. She spends a lot of time just in the jail and with Caroline Williams and kind of talking to her and everything like that. And Caroline Williams kind of comes up with this plan that she that what they need to do is basically get they need to get Thomas Crowley's ashes back from one of Victor Crowley's distant cousins. I think it's actually supposed to be Thomas Crowley's uncle, who has Thomas Crowley's ashes and basically give them to Victor, because Victor is just wanting he wants his dad. That's what he comes back night after night, looking for. And pretty much most of the movie is Caroline Williams trying to convince Danielle Harris to do this, to go on this escapade with her. So we'll pick back up on that in just a little bit, because again, we spend a lot of time just kind of in the jail with the two of them just kind of bullshitting and going back and forth. So while they are doing all of that, we kind of cut back to the swamp, where the sheriff's department has shown up, and they're kind of surveying the scene, blocking off the scene, all that good stuff kind of during the day. And that's when we meet Perry Shin's character, who I believe his name is Andrew in this movie, who plays one of the paramedics. And basically, they're finding all these remains, and they find the remains of Victor Crowley, and they bring it on to a ambulance boat, a water ambulance, I think is what they're called. Brings the remains to this boat, and at some point during the night, while one of the guys is in there working on the like autopsy and kind of looking at all the bodies and things like that, who is actually played by Sean Whalen, or Sean Wallen, however you say his name. He's been in a whole bunch of stuff. You'll recognize him as soon as you see him. Victor comes back to life, like you see in the body bag, which is really cool. You kind of see the body bag start to move, like Victor is sort of reforming. And he comes back to life, and he kills this paramedic in a really cool. Most of it's off screen, to be honest with you, and most of the next few kills are going to be off screen. But kills him with like some what do you call those? The defibrillator paddles to his head. And of course, like I said, you don't see too much of it, but what you get is plenty. And then of course he proceeds to slaughter all of the sheriff's deputies, things like that are actually in the swamp. And like I said, most of it we don't see. A lot of it is off screen, and we just kind of hear them over the radio. But Victor Crowley is back, baby. Like, he is coming in. He is taking names and kicking ass is what he's doing. He is just mutilating all of these people. And I'll take a minute to talk about this too, because I waited too long in the last review to talk about Victor's appearance. But Victor looks a little bit different in this movie compared to of course, the first and the second one. Now, I don't think that he looks better than the first Hatchet. I still think that that's my preferred appearance of Victor Crowley. But I definitely think the appearance of Victor Crowley in this film is an improvement over Hatchet 2. That's just my personal opinion. I think he just looks... I don't know. There's just something about the way he looks in this movie that is a lot more intimidating, and just looks better to me. Now, of course, he still has the same kind of Victor Crowley look to him. Of course, that but I just think that he ends up looking a lot better, a lot meaner, and he just is a lot meaner in this movie. To be honest with you, Victor Crowley's always been a very intimidating and badass monster, but in this one, he is definitely a force to be reckoned with. He's vicious. So after all these sheriff's deputies have been murdered and mutilated, Sheriff Fowler goes out to the swamp, and basically a SWAT team is called in to kind of find out what's going on. As the SWAT team comes in, of course, in regular old Hatchet fashion, they start to be picked off just one by one in the swamp. Now, we get a lot of really good kills in this movie. I don't think that they're as like... A lot of them are just, hatchet slashes here and there. But some of the really unique ones that stand out to me are, so at one point, Derek Mears' character, actually, let me back up just a little bit. There is a scene where all of the SWAT team show up at the Crowley house, and there's just this huge kind of fight that breaks out between Victor Crowley and all these SWAT team guys, and he basically just destroys them. I mean, he absolutely mutilates them, kills them in all kinds of just various ways, and it all looks great. It's all, again, still practical effects, except for one scene in this movie that sticks out like a sore thumb. And I'll mention this now because I was looking it up and I could not find any information on it. But there is a scene, one of the kills in this movie, as Victor's kind of slaughtering all these people, Victor picks up one of the cops and he's gonna kill him, and this other one of the cops has a rocket launcher, and he shoots this rocket launcher at Victor, and Victor holds out the cop's body in front of the missile. The missile hits the body flies into the Crowley house and explodes. I don't know if this was CGI or what the deal was, but it looked so odd, and it's the one effect in this movie that really just, again, sticks out like a sore thumb. I looked it up everywhere, and it did not say they boasted on the fact that there is no CGI in these movies, which there's not in the first two. I know, it's all practical effects, which is one thing that I love about this movie. But this one scene just really, again, you'll know it when you see it because it really stands out in there. And I just thought that was really odd. I felt like they could have done something a little bit different there. But it's not gonna destroy the movie. Like, I know I harp on CGI, bad CGI all the time, and I don't want to be like, oh, I'm never going to watch this again because it's got one scene of terrible CGI. No, I watched. There's several movies I watched that have just god awful CGI, but so it's not going to ruin the movie for me. But it just really sticks out in a movie that has these amazing practical effects, and it may not be CGI. I don't know. It might just be. I don't know what it is. I don't know how they did it. If anybody has any information on that, you're welcome to leave that below. But that is just what I thought from the first time I saw it, even till recently. Every time I see that scene, I'm like, oh, that looks bad. It just threw me off. It just, big time. You just see it and you're like, holy shit. Again, that's just me. That's just the way I feel about it. But anyway, like I said, during this scene, we get a lot of really gruesome kills, a lot of really brutal kills. Like the one guy who his arms are kind of bent backwards, or I think Victor even rips them off, if I remember correctly, after he's been stabbed with the flaming piece of wood and he gets drowned in a mud puddle. One of my favorite kills in this movie is when Derek Mears' character and Victor kind of face off. They kind of have this little face off instance, and Victor reaches into the stomach of Derek Mears and rips his skull out, and spine, kind of like a predator, but rips it out like through his stomach. And it's such a cool looking effect. It's very akin to like kind of what happened to Tony Todd in the previous movie. Very, very similar kind of thing. But that was a really cool kill. Probably my favorite kill in the whole movie. Also just because Derek Mears' character in this movie is kind of an asshole. Like, he's not really a dick, but he's very just, you're kind of glad to see him go. As much as I like Derek Mears. But you're glad to see him go in this movie whenever he does. And speaking of the kills, I honestly think this movie has the most kills in it. I think it's got just a little over 30, if I'm not mistaken. So there is a shitload of kills. Like, if you include all the ones that happen off screen and everything like that, like there's a bunch. Like there's a lot of kills. So, meanwhile, while all this is going on, of course, like I said, Caroline Williams and Daniel Harris have just been kind of going back and forth. And they finally convince one of the sheriff's deputies at the police station that they need to take Mary Beth to meet Thomas Crowley's uncle to get Thomas Crowley's ashes, because they're going to save Sheriff Fowler, who is her ex-husband, speaking of which. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So they go and meet up with Abbott McMullen, who is played by the late, great Sid Haig. He's so ridiculous in this movie. He's this racist old man. And he's insane. Like, I mean, he's really goofy. And I was really actually happy to see him in this movie because I love Sid Haig, and he plays this part of crazy old racist bastard really well. He says some very problematic things, but for this day and age, but it's all played for comedy, and he is really funny to watch. So anyway, when they go there, they find that they get his ashes. They end up like stealing the ashes basically, because he's not going to let them just take them. So when they get to the swamp, basically all that's left is Andrew, which is Perry Shen's character, Zach Galligan, who is Sheriff Fowler, and then Riley Vanderbilt, who plays Daughtry. I think that's the female cop that survives. Just the three of them are in the water ambulance, and Victor is outside of the water ambulance trying to saw his way into this thing with the gas-powered belt sander from the first two movies. That's a kind of a recurring weapon. And so Daniel Harris and the cop and Caroline Williams' character, they all arrive at the swamp, and they meet up with Victor. And around this time, Sheriff Fowler is killed, Daughtry is killed. Perry Shin is kind of the only one who's left in this ambulance, so we just kind of leave from him. And Mary Beth confronts Victor. And of course, she's the one that supposedly in Caroline Williams, in her mind, she's thinking that Mary Beth is the one who needs to present the ashes to Victor because her father is part of the cause of Victor's death. Which I guess makes sense. In her mind, and Mary Beth is hesitant about it, but she's kind of sort of more or less thrown into the position. So she approaches Victor with the ashes, and Victor stops and kind of looks at her, and he looks at the ashes, and he kind of he knows what's going on, and he even says, "Daddy," like he knows that it's him, which it kind of like broke my heart just a little bit in the movie, just the way he says it, and just kind of how like calm he gets in this instance. Like it's kind of sad, and it's a little heartbreaking because again, that's all he wants is his dad. That's the whole reason for all of this, and so. During this time, the cop thinks that he is going to attack Mary Beth, and he shoots Victor, and Victor kills the cop. He rips his chest open, and he rips Caroline Williams' head off right before Caroline Williams throws the ashes back to Mary Beth, who jumped out of the way. And Victor picks up Mary Beth and slams her against a branch on a tree, which completely impales her. And before she dies, before Victor finishes her off, she takes the urn with the ashes in it and smashes it over Victor's head, which you can tell fucks with him. Like it really gets him. And Victor starts to kind of back up and shake his head, and then he begins to melt slowly. And Mary Beth the branch falls off the tree, and Mary Beth is kind of laying there with the branch still kind of stabbed into her body, and Victor is just melting, and he melts down to nothing, basically to a skeleton. And Mary Beth is sitting there just waiting for him to get back up. She's waiting and waiting, and she has a shotgun from one of the cops that died. And so she's sitting there holding the shotgun, waiting for Victor to come back because she knows that he's coming back. And she's sitting there, and Victor just keeps melting and melting down to literally, like I said, a skeleton. And she just kind of says, "Fuck it," and blows the skeleton away with this shotgun. And Victor is done. I mean, that's all there is to it. So as Mary Beth is laying there and everything is kind of wrapping up, the Crowley house is kind of burning still in the background. I think the National Guard is who shows up. They show up with helicopters and ambulance and everything like that. We find that the sole survivor is Perry Shin. Andrew, his character, survived in this movie, which is really funny. I didn't even mention in the previous two movies, Perry Shin's character dies horribly in both of the other two films. So the fact that he survives in this one is really funny, and I got a great little chuckle out of that. Again, just wraps up very nicely. We kind of get a close-up on Mary Beth's face as she's kind of gasping for air. And we kind of hear her heart beating as the camera kind of fades to black. And then it fades in one more time. She catches one last breath, and then it fades out, kind of leaving her fate ambiguous. Like we really don't know what happens with her character. It's left entirely open. And then we roll credits, and that is Hatchet 3. That wraps up the trilogy. And like I said, all in all, I think that this one wraps up that original trilogy so well. I really wish they had not done another film. I wish they would have just left it at this, because this is the perfect way to end this trilogy. Now, like I said, I have watched Victor Crowley like once or twice, and probably about a year ago, I think is the last time I watched it, and it wasn't terrible, but I didn't hate it like I expected to. I really thought I wasn't going to like it. I did enjoy it more than I thought I was going to. But I still remember even kind of still feeling that it was unnecessary, especially with how strong and powerful the ending of this movie was. Like the curse of Victor Crowley has been lifted. Victor can finally rest. He has been reunited with his father. And that's all there is to it. I mean, like I said, I really wish that they would have just kind of left it be. And overall, this movie is fun, and I do enjoy it. I like it. I like I said, this is probably the weakest of the original trilogy, in my personal opinion, because I like Hatchet 1 and Hatchet 2 a lot more than I like this movie. Well, I wouldn't really say a lot more. We'll just say I like those more than I like this movie. But this one still is fun, and it is a welcome addition to the trilogy. You get some really good kills in it. The comedy is still here in this movie. This one is still pretty funny. Again, I don't have. I think that this was a great way to kind of wrap that trilogy up. So anyway, that does the Hatchet trilogy. I'm glad to kind of get this out of the way. I will probably cover Victor Crowley, but I'll probably wait to do that one because there's a couple more reviews that I need to get out pretty soon, which look forward to those whenever you see them to kind of complete another series. So I hope everyone enjoyed this review. Stay tuned for the next episode. As always, have a great night and goodbye.